giant robotic tripods could be vaporizing New Jersey. Democrats would point out how the death lasers were disproportionately affecting low-income communities and people of color, and AOC would tweet, "Stop demonizing the Martian X community." I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality, that like it's the same word, and it's not the same word and the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is.
Lately, some Democrats have been buzzing about a bold idea for the 2028 presidential race, a ticket featuring Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But comedian and political commentator Bill Maher isn't buying the hype for a second. In fact, he thinks the excitement is wildly overblown. According to Maher, a Sanders-AOC pairing wouldn't fare any better than the Harris-Walz ticket did. During a fiery monologue, he laid out his case with sharp criticism and plenty of blunt observations. And trust me, he didn't sugarcoat a single word. Let's break down exactly what he said. But first, if you enjoy bold political commentary like this, make sure you're subscribed. Now, let's dive in.
Think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders. They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job.
Maher didn't ease into the topic. He shut down the Sanders-AOC idea almost immediately. While it's true that both Bernie Sanders and AOC still attract massive crowds and enthusiastic supporters, Maher believes that popularity within progressive circles doesn't translate into national victory. Recent speculation polls even place AOC close behind Kamala Harris when it comes to possible Democratic nominees, though AOC herself hasn't formally announced any presidential ambitions. Still, that didn't stop Maher from weighing in. Known for making early and sometimes controversial political predictions, including his skepticism about President Biden's staying power in the race, Maher went all in. In his view, the Sanders-AOC concept isn't just unrealistic, it's a political dead end.
AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
One of Maher's biggest criticisms centers on what he sees as hypocrisy within the progressive wing of politics. He pointed to an incident during a protest where activists removed an American flag and replaced it with a Palestinian flag. According to Maher, that moment demanded immediate condemnation from leaders like Sanders and AOC. Instead, their silence struck him as troubling. To Maher, it felt less like neutrality and more like quiet acceptance of something he considered deeply disrespectful and unpatriotic. He's long been critical of what he calls performative activism and relentless criticism of America. In his view, leaders who hesitate to defend their own country when it matters shouldn't be anywhere near the Oval Office. Later, during a conversation with Don Lemon, Maher doubled down on those concerns.
Nancy Pelosi, I think she's a very smart woman, but I think that era of the Nancy Pelosi type in the Democratic Party is over. I think that this is the era of whether, and I didn't like her policies at first, and I'm not necessarily in love with her policies, but people love AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with
No.
are.
The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't.
But
She's
AOC
very
During that interview, Maher made it clear he finds Don Lemon's position confusing at times. Lemon criticized some of AOC's policies, yet still floated the idea that she could be a strong national leader because people want her. Maher quickly called out the contradiction. Even Lemon admitted that several people within his own circle aren't exactly fans of AOC, which led Maher to ask the obvious question. If even her allies are skeptical, where exactly is this overwhelming demand for her leadership coming from? Maher suggested Lemon seemed caught between appeasing progressive voices and quietly expressing doubts. Maher, on the other hand, prides himself on speaking bluntly, regardless of whether the crowd cheers or boos.
People will vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think that, Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and
That's
Fetterman
phony.
is because it's
You don't know
irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down
it implies it.
But that doesn't mean that she was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies that in some way she's behind the 8 ball.
Maher also laughed off a suggestion that AOC and Donald Trump could somehow share political ground or even hypothetically run together. To him, that idea borders on absurd. Their political philosophies couldn't be further apart. AOC promotes policies rooted in democratic socialism, expanded government programs, and progressive activism. Trump, by contrast, centers his message around economic nationalism, border enforcement, and unapologetic patriotism. One represents activist-driven progressive politics, the other focuses on traditional nationalism and economic results. According to Maher, imagining those two on the same ticket isn't serious political discussion, it's pure fantasy.
She's behind the 8 ball, but I don't think she's as privileged as many people who are in Congress right now.
Is that privileged or not? She was a bartender.
Yeah.
So I was a delivery boy.
But I'm saying sometimes, Bill, you don't agree with Donald Trump's policies.
No.
But that's what the people want.
Some of them.
Whether you like her or not, I don't like what she did with Amazon in New York. But I think AOC she's a Democratic icon.
Well, she's the wrong. If you think that's the direction the country, the Democratic.
I'm not saying the policies that she espouses that's the direction, but I'm saying that you have to give the people who are out front speaking for the party, not the people who are.
If you think
she's evolving.
Maher also turned his attention to AOC's personal narrative. He argued that the hardships she sometimes references in speeches don't fully align with her upbringing. According to Maher, she grew up in Yorktown Heights, a relatively comfortable suburb, rather than a struggling inner-city environment. His point wasn't simply about geography, it was about credibility. Maher suggested that when politicians reshape their personal stories for political appeal, it raises larger questions about honesty. If someone is willing to stretch the truth about their background, he asked, what might they be willing to bend once they hold real power? For Maher, that concern goes beyond biography. It's about trust in leadership.
Had AOC there toward the middle, but, again, for the people that come up to me, Bill, what are we going to do? Well, you can't do much because you lost all the levers of power. What you can do, the thing that you can do, is get on your side to not look crazier than him. That's all you can do. Now go back to your $800 4-plate dinner while you're worrying about how the world is going to end.
What do you say? You don't want to look as crazy as he does?
That's the only thing liberals can do. Just don't do shit that makes people go, oh, Trump, he's just crazy, but at least...
Another reason Maher doubts AOC's presidential viability is that he believes her ideology is firmly locked in place. Her political identity is built around aggressive progressive activism, and moderating those views would mean abandoning the very platform that made her famous. But Maher argues this isn't just about AOC. He believes the Democratic Party itself has shifted strongly toward progressive cultural politics. Issues like aggressive climate policies, looser border approaches, and constant identity-based debates have become central to the party's messaging. In that sense, Maher says AOC isn't an outlier anymore. She's a symbol of where the party is heading. And because of that, changing course would be nearly impossible without alienating her core supporters.
Robotic tripods could be vaporizing New Jersey. Democrats would point out how the death lasers were disproportionately affecting low-income communities and people of color. And AOC would tweet, "Stop demonizing the Martian X community."
Also believes the Democratic National Committee would be taking a huge risk by backing a Sanders AOC ticket. While Bernie Sanders still commands loyalty from his base, Maher argues his appeal doesn't stretch far enough across the country. Sanders frequently criticizes the influence of billionaires and powerful elites, yet critics point out that he spent decades inside the Washington system, owns multiple homes, and lives comfortably within the structure he condemns. That contradiction doesn't resonate well with many voters in Middle America. Pair that with AOC's more polarizing progressive policies, and Maher says the result would be a ticket that energizes the far left while pushing away moderates and independents, a dangerous combination in a national election.
I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality, that like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come me to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Maher says this disconnect is exactly why many voters feel frustrated with the modern progressive movement. He argues that political messaging on the far left often relies on buzzwords that aren't clearly explained. Sanders' frequent use of the term equity became a perfect example during one interview. When asked to define exactly what the concept meant in practical terms, Sanders struggled to provide a clear answer. The moment grew awkward enough that Maher had to help steer the conversation forward. For Maher, that moment illustrated a bigger problem. If leaders can't clearly explain their own policies, how can voters trust them to implement those ideas nationwide? He also pointed out that when confronted with polling data that challenges his agenda, Sanders sometimes deflects rather than address the criticism directly. Even within the Democratic Party, Maher notes, Sanders often stands alone, like when most Democrats recently supported increased military spending, a move Sanders has long opposed.
You were advocating at the Supreme Court, I think it was last week, right? Because, or maybe it was this week, that the Supreme Court is looking at Biden's giveaway to people who own debt.
Giveaway is your term, not my term.
Well, they have college debt. Okay, and we're going to give them money.
We're going to forgive debt.
Well, we're arguing about the same thing, but there was no argument. We're giving the money.
In Maher's view, if Democrats ultimately rally behind a Sanders AOC ticket in 2028, the result could be another painful electoral defeat. He sees it as repeating the same mistake he believes occurred with the Harris-Walz campaign, a ticket that struggles to unite the broader electorate. While Sanders and AOC may generate huge enthusiasm among activists, social media audiences, and college campuses, Maher argues they struggle to connect with middle-class voters, independents, and more traditional Democrats, seeking stability and pragmatic leadership. A ticket like that could drive away moderates and give Republicans an easy narrative, two candidates tied to policies many Americans see as too extreme. If the Democratic Party wants to remain competitive in the next presidential race, Maher warns that leaning further into far-left ideology might be the quickest route to defeat. And that wraps up today's breakdown. If you found this discussion interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into politics and media. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.